Hello everyone, welcome to the new session of Principle of Feeding Part 1. So here in this session we are going to talk about the feeding of animals, right? So first of all, let us discuss about the ration. A ration is a feed allowed for a given animal during a day of 24 hours. So whatever we are feeding to any particular animal or the cattle, then it is called as ration, right? So the feed may be given at a time or the portions at the interval. So we are having a proper time to feed our animals and we must maintain a intervals, right? So this is about the ration. Now, let us talk about the balanced ration. A balanced ration is a ration which provides the essential nutrients to the animal, right? We provide the required essential nutrients to the animal in such a proportion and amounts that are required for the proper nourishment, very important, proper nourishment of the particular animal for 24 hours. For various physiological functions of the animal. So we are providing the balanced ration means that we are providing all the required nutrients in a proper proportion, right? So that they can have a proper nourishment, so that they can do all their physiological activities and function in a proper way. Desirable characteristics of a ration. So what does a characteristic that a ration must have? Liberal feeding. The animal should be provided in a plenty with all the requirements which are necessary for full milk production and maintenance of our body. So two things which we must keep in our mind, that we are providing ration to our animals or the food to our animals so that they can give a proper production of milk as well as they can maintain their body, right? So this thing we should keep in our mind. There should also be some allowance made for what goes as a waste in preparation and serving the feed to the cow. So generally we keep in mind that there must be some wastage of food, right? Because they're the animals and sometimes some of the food get wasted, right? So it doesn't mean that we should provide them a less quantity of food. We must provide them plenty of food, and that is required for the milk production and maintenance of a body. It should not mistaken for overfeeding. So we must not do the overfeeding to them. Okay, but we should provide them plenty of food, but not the overfeeding. It is a doubly wasteful because it wastes feed and it is also injures the animal. So overfeeding can create a lot of problems to the animals or the cattle. So these things we should keep in mind before feeding to our cattle. Now, after the liberal feeding, let us talk about the individual feeding. In order to obtain maximum profit, cows must be fed individually according to the production and requirements instead of allowing the same ration to each animal in the herd. So according to the production and requirement from the cattle, we must provide rations to them accordingly, okay, so that we can have a maximum profit. The ration should be properly balanced. This is very, very important. Okay, the ration should be properly balanced. Why? With a correct and a balanced ration, a cow can get the best out of all constituents present in her feed, resulting in the production of milk and at cheaper cost. Right? So if we provide a proper balanced diet to our cow or buffalo, then only we can have a good result of milk production. Okay, the production of milk will be at the best. So importantly, improperly balanced ration, much of the feed is wasted, right? So if improperly balanced ration is there, the cow will not eat that food in a proper way, and there will be lots and lots of wastage of food. So what is eaten by the cow is not important, but what she digests is important. So before making the ration for the, or before the planning for the food for the cow or buffalo or the cattle, we must keep in mind that what the cattle can digest, what the cow can digest, or what can buffalo can digest. So according to that only our ration should be planned for the cattle. The ration should be properly balanced because the feed digest alone goes for the milk production. Whatever the feed is given to the cattle and get digested, that only is going for the milk production and maintenance of the body, right? So a balanced ration is thus more purposeful and beneficial for the milk production and also the health condition, maintaining the health condition of our cattle. The ration must be palatable. Whatever the feed given to an animal must be to its liking. So our cattle must like that particular food. So the quality of the food should be at the best. Okay. And whatever the cow is liking, that should be there. So evil smelling, moldy, musty, spoiled and inferior feeds are unpalatable and must not be given to the animal. So before giving food to the animal, we must check that if any smell or the food is stale, right? So moldy and musty and spoiled food should not be fed to these animals. If some excellent feed is not good in taste, they should be improved by special preparations like addition of salt or other feed additives. Okay, so if any of the feed is important for the cattle, right, but they are not eating because that is not good in taste, but that is required for the milk production and their good health. So what we can do, we can add some salt in it, right, and that can make it a good taste, so that can be eaten by our cattle. Variety of feed in the ration. By combining many feeds in a ration, a better and a balanced mixture of a protein, vitamins and other nutrients are furnished than by depending on only a few. So we must make a proper mixture of proteins, vitamins and other nutrients that are required by the cattle. Okay, so the combining feed is very, very important. Variety of feed in the ration makes it more palatable. So we should keep variety of feeds to our cattle, and that is liked by the cattle also. The ration should contain enough of the mineral matter. Every liter of milk yielded by the cow contains little more than 0.7% of mineral matter. So our milk is having lots of minerals in it, right? So if the amount of mineral matter in the ration is not sufficient to meet the demand in the milk yield, the cow shall have to draw up her own body supplies for fall down in the milk yield. So we must keep the mineral matter in the feed because our milk must contain this amount of the mineral. Okay, and if that is not present in the food we are feeding to the cattle, then what will happen? All that nutrient will be taken from the body of the cow, and that can make the cow weaker. So at the end of her lactation, the cow will be left as an extremely weak animal, and her milk yield is subsequent lactation will go down considerably. So later on, the milk production or the lactation in the body of the cow will also decrease. So the ration should contain enough mineral matter. The ration should be fairly laxative. Constipation is often the cause of most of the digestive troubles, right? So this is one of the problem in the digestion. So it is therefore necessary to give such feed which are laxative in character. So some laxative food should be added so that there is no constipation to the animals. The ration should be fairly bulky, very important. The stomach of the cattle is very capacious and they do not feel satisfied unless their bellies are properly filled up, right? So there is lot of space, there is lot of volume or the capacity in the stomach of the cattle. So unless they get satisfied, and when they get satisfied, when it is totally filled up. So our food should be fairly bulky. Whatever the feed we are giving to the cattle, that should be fairly bulky. From the point of providing energy and the heat generated values, indigestible fiber is not of any great importance, but it play an important role in giving feeling of fullness to the cattle, right? So we should provide some indigestible fiber, so that gives them a feeling of fullness, right? And the required nutrient is already we are providing, but to fill its bellies we can add some indigestible fiber, right, along with the digestible fiber, so that gives them a proper filled their bellies feeling, and that satisfy themselves, right? So this can be done. If the bulk of the ration supplied is small, however rich it might be in its nourishing constituent, cattle may fall a victim to the depraved habits of eating earth, rags, dirty refuses, etc. for filling up of the stomach. So this is very, very important point, that cattle must be felt that their bellies get filled. Okay, otherwise they will start eating earth material, means mud or rags or the dirty refuses, etc. for filling up their stomach. So that for avoiding this, we can add some indigestible fiber that can give them the feeling that their bellies are filled up, okay, and they are having sufficient amount of food in their body. The ration should contain sufficient green fodder. This is also very important. Green fodder is favorite food of the cattle. Okay, so green succulent fodder are of great importance in the feeding of milch animals because of their cooling and slightly laxative action. So we were talking about the laxative food, okay, to avoid the constipation in the animals. So not only this, green succulent fodder is providing the cooling effect to the animals, but also there is slightly laxative action also. So they aid in the appetite and keep the animal in good condition. So this is very, very important. They aid in their appetite, okay, and keep the animals in good condition. So this green succulent fodder is very important. Green fodder are bulky, easily digestible and laxative, and contain enough of the necessary vitamins. So they contain lots and lots of vitamins in it. They are bulky. So when they are bulky, they provide them sufficient amount of food in their feeling of sufficient amount of food in their stomach, right? And they are easily digestible also. They are having a laxative property and contain enough of necessary vitamins. So this green fodder is very, very important for feeding cattle. Leguminous green fodders are very rich in protein. So if we are providing this leguminous green fodder, they are rich in protein, and this protein is going to help animals in maintaining their body as well as high production of milk. Avoid sudden changes in the ration. So this is also important. We should avoid sudden changes in the ration. Okay, so sudden changes are often the cause of many digestive troubles. Like the more notable being is the tympanitis and impaction. All changes of the feed must be gradual and slow. So if we want to change the food, slowly we must do that. Okay, so all changes of the feed must be gradual and slow. An animal system receiving a certain feed or a mixture of feed gets accustomed to it. So animal system, if we are changing the food, then that particular food need time to get accustomed. The animal need time to get accustomed with their feed, right? So if we are changing the food very frequently, then that is not going to help to the animal, right? So they require a time or system, right, to get accustomed with the change of food. So it get upset by the sudden changes. So to avoid that, sudden changes in the ration, maintain regularity in feeding. Cattle, like other animals, are the creatures of habits and get so much used to routine that marked changes may lead to the restlessness. So we must maintain this timetable for feeding the cattle. Okay, so as the feeding hour approaches, their glandular secretions become active in anticipation of the meal. So there is a biological clock in their body as well. Okay, at the particular time, their glandular secretions become active, whether the food is there or not. Okay, so this is very important that we should provide regularity in feeding to our cattle. Irregularity in milking and the feeding tells very badly on the productive powers of the animal. So if we are not providing that food to the animals timely, then their milking capacity can be affected, right? Their productive powers can be affected. The time of feeding should be evenly distributed so that the animals are not kept too long without feed. So we should maintain the timetable and provide them timely, right? We should feed them timely, and we should not keep a long interval. The feed must be properly prepared. The feed must be well prepared. Some feeds require special preparations before administration in order to render them more digestible and palatable, right? The preparation must be special, and all the nutrient must be present in that feed. Hard grains like gram, barley, wheat, maize, etc. should be ground before feeding so that their mastication may become easy. Okay, so we must, first of all, we must include all these grains in their feed, that is gram, barley, wheat and maize. And they should be properly ground so that they can masticate them easily, right? And it is easy to digest them. The coarse fodders like dry jowar, bajra and green fodders of these crops should be chaffed before feeding. Okay, that should be chaffed. Keep this in mind that the dry jowar, bajra or the green fodder should be chaffed before feeding these cattle. Some dry fodders such as bhusa of the cereals, okay, and legumes should be moistened. They should not be fed them dry. They should be moistened with the water or some other food materials. Soaked off feeds like various types of cakes, cotton seeds, soften them and make them more palatable. Not only the cotton seed, even the mustard seed oil cakes can also be provided, right? So that should be soaked because they are very hard. That should be soaked before feeding them. If the ration is too bulky, the animals will fail to get all its nutrient requirement. Okay, so the ration should not be very bulky. Otherwise the animal will fail to get all its nutrient requirement. Economy in labor and cost. The ultimate object of rearing animal is to make profit. So what are our motto by feeding these animals? We have to take so many steps providing feed to the animals. Why we are doing so? Because we want to make profit in turn by having lots and lots of milk, so that we can sell it in the market and we can have a proper earning, right? So the ultimate object of rearing animal is to make profit. The cost of the feed and the labor in feeding should be minimized to an extent that economic efficiency is not affected. So we must keep in mind that whatever we are feeding and whatever the cost is we are paying to the labor in feeding should be in a balanced way, right? So that the economic efficiency is not affected. So this is all about this session. We will have one more session to complete this particular topic. Till then, thank you very much.